The little girl looked me straight in the eyes and whispered, "You're not supposed to be living in our house." I laughed because I thought she was joking. 10 minutes later, I wasn't laughing anymore. My wife and I had finally bought our dream home just outside Asheville, North Carolina. It wasn't fancy, but it had everything we'd wanted: an old wraparound porch, a huge oak tree in the front yard, and enough land that our nearest neighbor was almost a quarter-mile away. The previous owner, an elderly woman named Margaret, had passed away 6 months earlier. Her nephew sold the property without ever moving in. Everything about the sale seemed normal. At least, that's what I believed until moving day. The little girl couldn't have been older than 8. She was riding a faded blue bicycle along the edge of our driveway while the moving truck unloaded furniture. She stopped, stared at the house, then stared at me. "You shouldn't unpack," she said. I smiled. "Why not?" "Because they always come back." Before I could ask what she meant, a woman called her name from across the road. She rode away without another word. That night I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. My wife, Emily, rolled her eyes. Kids say weird things. She was probably right. Still, I locked every door before going to bed. The next morning I started unpacking boxes in the garage. Behind an old shelving unit, I found a loose wooden panel. Curiosity got the better of me. Behind it was a small metal box. Inside, only one key. No label, no note. Just a heavy brass key unlike any I'd ever seen. I showed it to Emily. She shrugged. "Probably belongs to an old shed." The strange thing was, there wasn't a shed anywhere on the property. That afternoon I walked the entire lot. Nothing. No abandoned building. No cellar. No locked gate. It made no sense. As I headed back toward the house, I noticed the little girl again. This time she wasn't riding her bike. She was standing near the mailbox. Watching me, I held up the key. "Know what this opens?" Her face lost all color. "You found it. You've seen it before?" She nodded. "My grandpa told me never to touch it." "Why?" "He said the people inside never wanted anyone to know." Before I could ask another question, her mother hurried over. "I'm so sorry," she said, pulling the girl away. "She has a wild imagination." The woman wouldn't even look at the key. That bothered me. A lot. That evening the power went out. Only our house. Every other home on the road still had lights. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. That's when I noticed footprints in the gravel driveway. Fresh. Someone had walked up to the porch, but there were no footprints leading away. Emily called from inside. "The lights are back." When I walked in, the key was gone. I searched every room. Nothing. Emily insisted she'd never touched it. Neither of us slept much that night. Around 3 a.m, I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate. I looked through the front window. A man stood beneath the oak tree. He wasn't facing the house. He was facing the road, as if he were waiting for someone. When I opened the front door, he was gone. Only a folded piece of paper lay on the porch. It contained one sentence: "Stop digging before she remembers." I showed it to Emily. She looked confused. "Who is she?" I didn't have an answer. The next morning I visited the county records office. Margaret's property file was unusually thin, almost too thin. There were tax records, building permits, but nothing older than 2008. The clerk frowned. "That's strange." "What?" "This house was built in 1974. "So?" "We should have records going back decades." She searched another database. Nothing. It was as if 30 years of history had simply disappeared. Driving home, I noticed an older man standing beside my mailbox. He introduced himself as Walter. I used to know Margaret. When I mentioned the brass key, his expression changed immediately. You should throw it into the river. Why? Because every person who kept it regretted it. I asked him what had opened. He shook his head. You'll find out soon enough. Then he walked away. That night, Emily finally admitted something she'd hidden from me. She had been sleepwalking. Not once. Every night since we moved in, I always wake up by the back door, she whispered. I don't remember getting there. Goosebumps covered my arms. The back door. It was the only door in the house with an old brass lock. I slowly reached into my pocket. The key wasn't missing. Emily's hands began to shake. I've never been there. But that's you. She couldn't deny it. The jacket, the boots, even the scratch on her wrist. The timestamp matched the middle of the night. We called the sheriff. He searched the property but found nothing except fresh tire tracks leading into the woods. Walter returned the next afternoon. This time he finally told us the truth. Years ago, Margaret had secretly taken in a frightened teenage girl who had escaped an abusive home. That girl was Emily. She had lived in our house for almost a year under a different last name while the court protected her identity. Emily slowly covered her mouth. Small memories began returning. The porch swing. The old oak tree. A lullaby Margaret used to sing. She had been here before. Walter looked at me. Someone else remembers, too. He handed me an old photograph. Margaret, a teenage Emily, and a man standing in the background. His face had been scratched out. The sheriff identified him within hours. Emily's biological father. He had been searching for her for over 20 years. Not because he loved her, because Margaret had hidden evidence that could send him to prison. The brass key didn't open a room. It opened a safety deposit box at a local bank. Inside were Margaret's journals, court records, photographs, and signed statements proving years of abuse and financial crimes. The anonymous messages had never been trying to scare us away. Someone was desperately trying to recover the key before Emily remembered who she really was. 2 days later, her father was arrested after attempting to break into the bank. He never reached the box. When the trial ended months later, Emily stood beside Margaret's grave with tears in her eyes. I spent years believing she was just a kind old woman, she whispered. No. I squeezed her hand. She saved your life. As we drove home, Emily looked at the house one more time. It was never trying to haunt us. She smiled through her tears. It was trying to bring me home. That day I learned something I'll never forget. The past doesn't disappear because people bury it. Sometimes it waits quietly for the one person brave enough to unlock the truth